The 10th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe following on from Captain America the Winter Soldier is Guardians of the Galaxy, and joining me to talk about it, as usual, is Barry.
Hello!
So we're taking a trip back to 2014, 3 whole years ago.
Yeah, and it feels kind of more recent, I suppose. I feel like this kind of kicked off the modern era of, alright, these Marvel movies they're kicking ass a little bit, and so that feels very recent, to me at least. So yeah, it doesn't feel like that long ago.
The modern trend of these films being like, actually good, rather than like good with reservations.
Yeah, kind of something, in the case of the last two, like you seek out and you're like, oh no, this is one you have to go. Like these movies getting the hearty recommendation rather than if it's Saturday and you're doing nothing, it's solid, go check it out. Less of that, more of the thorough recommendations. Yeah.
It was directed by James Gunn, who I'm just looking at the Wikipedia now, wrote the scripts for the Scooby-Doo live-action films.
Oh, really? Now, I knew him more from Super. Super is weird. It's doing the superhero parody thing in the vein of Kick-Ass, the kind of adult-themed, cynical twist on superhero parody, but it's hard. It's a very odd film. It's also hilarious in hindsight now that he's produced one of the the most successful superhero films of the modern age. But it's weirder than Kick-Ass. It doubles down on the surrealness. In some ways, it kind of really does feel like an indie film. It feels like an indie Kick-Ass with a smaller budget and much weirder, kind of creepier undertones. It's a very odd film, but it's very good. I did enjoy it. And it's kind of hilarious that he went from that to making this glorious, big budget, gorgeous CGI filled sci-fi adventure for the whole family. But yeah, And I saw that Scooby-Doo movie when I was a kid, that first one.
I would see that in the cinema.
Yeah, me too.
Because it was released during the summer, and I was doing summer camp in primary school, and it was one of the class trips during primary school. So primary school summer camp. Went to see Scooby-Doo.
Sounds good to me.
That's a hoot of a time, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do think there is elements of do I want to say satire in this film? I feel like this film does kind of satire kind of the superhero genre at times. Maybe
a little bit, yeah. Small bits.
Because there's Karen Gillan's character who is like the most over the top like depiction of a superhero villain. She just shouts at everybody and she's angry all the time.
Yeah.
Like there's the scene toward the end of the film where she jumps out of a plane and jumps onto a ship and she's like, "Give me your ship!" And it's like delivered with like comical anger. So I feel like, and when there's like tension, he always tries to undercut the tension, whereas like where other superhero films they kind of go super serious, where it's just like, let's do a dance off instead. So I feel like some of like the satire elements of James Gunn's kind of like past did creep in here somewhere.
Yeah, and it's got a little bit. It's kind of violent. It certainly doesn't push the 12 rating, on our side of the pond. It doesn't kind of push it too far, but it's kind of, I think it's kind of at the limits. You got that one scene where the dude gets his head turned around, complete 180. Next snap, you got
early on.
Yeah, every time I've seen this movie several times. I believe I mentioned on the last podcast. I've seen this. I saw it twice in theaters. Saw it, at least once or twice on Blu-ray after the fact, and then watched it this time. Every time I get to that scene, I forget that there's a guy who gets his head completely obliterated by a hammer.
Yep.
In a blood sacrifice. It's quite a scene. Yeah, it's I think it's pushing that envelope a little bit. It's got like a prison scene, and yeah, it's a sci-fi space comic booky prison, but they're going for a slightly grittier, shank you in the showers vibe than a Marvel film you'd imagine would typically go. I think that's part of why James Gunn was a good pick for this film. Is this? I mean, we've talked before about how they kind of hop. The good thing about the cinematic universe is kind of the hopping around between genres. I mean, this one they really, really went. I mean, this is a sci-fi epic in some ways,
and a Star Wars film.
It's very Star Wars. It really is. I mean, the first time I saw it, I got tons of Star Wars vibes. I got a little bit of Mass Effect off of it. Because I was like, man, I wish there was a Mass Effect S game where I could just mill around this city, this hub, talk to these characters, because while they don't go too deep on it in this first film, they little nods at, here are all the races, and here's the way they get along with each other, and here are the police forces, and here is the kind of the lore, the giant head of a celestial being. Like, here's maybe here who ruled here in a previous life. Like, they really plant lots of interesting seeds. It's in some ways full of sci-fi kind of cliches and odes to older sci-fi films, but it seems like a very cool world that I look forward to exploring in more films. And so they really went deep on the space opera stuff here, and I appreciate it. Again, like as always, the Marvel films that deviate are often the most intriguing.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw this. That's like, there's a lot of words that I don't understand in the first 30 minutes of this film. It's just like they're throwing stuff out, building this universe.
Absolutely, yeah. And of course it benefits on a rewatch
where you can actually kind of keep a little more track of all these different places and people and things. Chris Pratt as a lead it's a risky pick. He was a guy on I love Parks and Rec, it's one of my favorite shows, but like Parks and Rec didn't have a huge audience. It was a relatively niche TV show. Like, Chris Pratt wasn't like a well-known star. So like to pick him, while like and to remember, it's hard to remember now because he's like a giant movie star. Chris Pratt is like one of the biggest movie stars in the world now. He was an unknown, he was like an unknown coming into this film, more or less.
And that's the thing. I mean, it's like it's hard to think about him as an unknown now because of this film. I mean, this really did launch him in a huge way, and now it's like, oh yeah, of course, he's in the next one. He was in Jurassic World. He'll be in the next. I think he's in the next Jurassic World. I didn't even bother seeing the first one. Obviously he will then be in Infinity War. I mean, and he also got in like ridiculous shape for this film, which is another thing that kind of helped. I mean, he was kind of the endearing, slightly pudgy guy prior to this, by his own admission. And in this one, he got in leading man Marvel movie shape
for the trademark one scene without his shirt on.
Oh yeah, but I mean, they got their money's worth because they put it in all the trailers.
Yep.
So at least it was worth it. But I mean, I thought he was so seamless, pretty much from the first scene. He was charismatic and likable, and obviously very talented actor. And in a movie like this that's pretty jokes heavy, I mean, just fantastic comedic timing. And again, that's one thing that is a testament to him and also Gunn, is the movie is very funny and it's very snappy, and with great comedic timing in an environment where there's lots of CGI characters and voiceovers, and you look at it and you go, this probably isn't the easiest environment in the world to try and have chemistry with a little raccoon that's not actually there and a big tree guy that's not actually there.
Yeah, of the five leads, like, one is under heavy prosthetics, one is under heavy makeup, and then two aren't actually there. So
yeah, and like Batista, I mean, the praise for Batista coming out of this film from like actual film critics was very odd, because I think most critics kind of saw through the fact that like he's not really like a very versatile actor, but he's so perfect in this role that it worked, and he was like praised pretty much, pretty universally praised as one of the more enjoyable facets of the film. And it's like, and again, it's someone who it might be difficult to play off, because he's charismatic in his own way, as you and I know, being wrestling fans, we know that he has a great presence and he can be very, very entertaining. But again, he's from a completely different walk of life to someone like Chris Pratt or Zoe Saldana. It's a testament to the sheer talent of everyone involved, that the chemistry is there on screen, and the snappiness of the dialogue just works really well.
And you get Vin Diesel and Bradley Cooper, two of like objectively the biggest names in Hollywood at the moment, and they're nowhere to be seen. They're playing CGI characters. Yeah,
I get the vibe Vin Diesel is just a happy dude who just takes whatever role he wants for the fun of it. He's swimming in Fast and Furious money for the rest of his days. So yeah, I'll be a tree in this movie if you want me to be a tree. It sounds fun.
In defense of Vin Diesel, he recorded "I Am Groot" in like every language that this film was released in.
Oh wow!
So like he didn't just show up for the English recording. He committed to this. No.
Yeah, I mean, by all accounts, he seems like a cool guy.
And of course, you had Bradley Cooper playing Rocket Raccoon.
Bradley Cooper, great. as he usually is. I kind of unrecognizable, I feel. I mean, I've seen Bradley Cooper in a couple of different films, but he's really given it his animated rodent voice. You know, it really doesn't sound like it's not like when you watch some kind of middle of the road DreamWorks film where they forked out for an expensive cast and it's just the celebrities just being themselves doing their voiceover. Like,
Chris Rock is going to do his Chris Rock voice and everyone's going to be happy.
And Will Smith is another good example. Actually, I think Will Smith is always just Will Smith. Whereas, Bradley Cooper, he's working here. He's putting on this wacky voice that you would imagine this character to have, this kind of shrill, obnoxious little kind of rodent character. It's perfect. It's perfect.
And then you have a really, really good supporting cast. Michael Rooker, Digimon Hansu, John C. Reilly, Glenn Close, who basically shows up in this film just to be the person to say, evacuate the city.
Yeah.
And Benicio del Toro, of course.
Benicio del Toro is, great. Glenn Close is kind of one of those, we've seen a lot of those now as we've kind of worked our way through Marvel, just sprinkling these really great actors in these small roles just to prop up the film just a little bit. Not that it needs it, but it's just, again, rock solid supporting cast. John C. Reilly as well. Good bit of comic relief in there as well. Really, really great supporting cast. Benicio del Toro is such a fantastic actor. He's so versatile. I mean, and this being perhaps one of the weirder roles I've seen him in.
Yeah, this is good because he's like specifically weird, but also like consistently menacing in this film.
Yeah,
or he's not like set up as a villain, but there's like a menace to him, and I think it's a really good subtle little performance.
Yeah, I wonder if they will return to him in the next one. I'm not familiar with. I mean, Phase 2 and also beyond now into 2016-17 with Doctor Strange et al. I mean, we're now firmly in territory where I'm being introduced to a lot of these people. I don't know anything about them, so I don't know if the Collector has significance in the lore of Guardians or in Infinity War. But I watching it back this time, I was like, I wonder if they'll bring this guy back at some stage, because obviously he knows the significance of the stones, and they didn't kill him, and he got the post-credit scene, although he wasn't obviously the star of it. But I was intrigued to see maybe what they'll do with him going forward.
And he already has one of the stones from Thor 2, so the idea that he might have two of them now.
Yes, I remember actually when I was watching this, because I actually hadn't seen that post-credit scene before you and I watched. And I'd already forgotten about it, because watching the movie this time I was like, oh wait, yeah, that he showed up in one of those previous ones. I don't even remember which one it was until you just said it there. So yeah.
And this is the film where they introduce what the Infinity Stones actually are, as opposed to these just random MacGuffins spread throughout the kind of cinematic universe. That it's like, these are the things, it's important in this entire universe now.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's kind of, in some ways kind of impressive that they had all these other films that are, coherent in their own ways. They're not lacking in any way for not knowing what they are, but holding off this long kind of kept it interesting. And in looking at the films we've had since, I'm trying to think, have they really hammered home? I guess Age of Ultron has
built around Infinity Stones. Yeah,
it's built around one.
There's one in Doctor Strange as well.
Is there? I don't even remember.
I'm pretty sure there wasn't it? The whole his necklace thing that could stop time and stuff is an Infinity Stone. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, I only saw that movie once, so it escaped me. But yeah. So finally explaining the significance of those. And introduced really kind of introduced the two big plot threads that will be the climax of this whole series, which is specifying what the Infinity Stones are and introducing Thanos.
Which Thanos was first seen in the Avengers, wasn't he? He was in the post-credit scene of that.
Was he? I don't remember. Oh God, my memory sucks. I don't remember that either.
That was the first reveal that this is where we've had the big fight for the universe, but there's more, and there's a new villain.
Oh yes, yeah, you're right. Yeah. And then they have another little tease at the end of Ultron, where he puts on the gauntlet. Yep,
I don't think you can talk about this one without talking about the music.
Of course not. No, yeah, it's tremendous.
It's fundamentally central. It's because it came up when I watched Suicide Squad, which is a film that has a lot of music in it as well. But it It feels like Suicide Squad saw this film and like, people really like the music in that film. Let's just throw all of the songs into our film, all of them, just every single one of the songs.
Yeah, I mean, like, not to get into DC talk, but like, Batman v Superman's like a film that I have like this contempt for because I just think it sucks. I think you can edit it any way, shape, or form you want. I just think it's abysmal. Like Suicide Squad, I feel bad for that movie because I feel like there was kernels of good idea and talented people, and it's, you know, like, could have been. I don't think it could have ever been great because I think there are script issues going, like, before scene one was ever filmed. I feel like the movie had script issues, but that is like one of the most painfully butchered films ever to be like released as an actual theatrical release, and the music is just so evident of that. Not only does it not go with the film, but it's so lazily selected. Like, they have the scene with Without Me. It's like, okay, you picked this extremely popular song from 15 years ago. It must have taken you 2 seconds to come up with that choice. You know, all this, and you know, A House on a Hill or whatever it is for the opening prison scene. It's like, oh my god, this is, yeah, it did feel like they saw Guardians and you know, and also slightly panicked due to the reception of Batman v Superman, and just took a hatchet to this film that had the potential to be good. But again, I do feel like the superhero genre, I mean, it really is kind of trend based. There's so much money tied up in it that people, when they see something that works, they kind of freak out and say, oh, well, this is the thing we have to do now. We saw it with Deadpool as well, right? It's like, and DC, again, you know, DC are just, they're so struggling for a direction that they did the music thing with Suicide Squad. Then after the success of Deadpool, then they're like, oh, gotta do an R-rated Lobo movie, gotta do an R-rated this, gotta do an R-rated that. You know, so the leaders of the genre really are influencing everyone else, and the music for this one, you know, really hammered that home. Really great soundtrack, something you could listen to kind of outside of the context of the movie and obviously love it. Just a collection of great 80s hits, and I do like that they tied it to the character of the film as well. It's not just, here's some good songs. You know, it's something personal to Quill, which I like.
Yeah. Have you seen Lego Batman yet?
I still haven't, actually.
There's a very good little Suicide Squad jab in there.
Oh, now I really want to see it. Yeah, I heard it's great. I love the Lego movie, but haven't made the time for it yet.
Yeah, but the music is like, this film would still be great if it was just like your boilerplate Marvel score. But there's just that specific music, and you know, there are some big hits. There's like some Jackson 5 of the credit sequence. You know, it's not like these obscure 70s gems right the way through, but it feels like they chose songs like specifically, as opposed to the Suicide Squad approach of, you know, what's the 10 most listened to songs on Spotify, let's just throw them in our film.
Yeah, and like the Hooked on a Feeling, which they used so well in the trailers. I mean, that was the marketing for this film, I mean, they really took this unknown entity. I mean, relatively speaking, I mean, to be frank about it, you know, an unknown entity.
Yeah, no one knows no one knows who the Guardians of the Galaxy are.
And they marketed it as this off the wall, kooky thing that's not your average comic book film. And, you know, even coming off Winter Soldier, which was great, I think it was the right time to play that card, to say, hey everyone, this isn't your usual movie, this is something different. And they had that great trailer with that song, and then in the actual movie, that song is used really well during this like downtrodden sequence where they're being thrown in jail. You know, it's great. It's used to great effect. And then you know, in the bar scene where they're on kind of the balcony looking out, and they got fooled around and fell in love on there, which is just such a cracking song. I mean, it's slightly overused, but, you know, that's not their fault. I'll give them a pass on it. You know, it's great. It's really, really great. And the Jackson 5, obviously, at the end, it's so pitch perfect. Such a great, happy song to go out on.
With Dancing Baby Groot.
Yes, which made the whole... It was already a great film, and then it was upper echelon after that.
Dancing Baby Groot just takes it to the next level, doesn't it?
I got my girlfriend a Dancing Baby Groot one Christmas. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but I was very proud of that one.
They laid seeds for a sequel with the whole, you know, Peter Quill is actually from space thing.
Yeah.
And like, the sequel is out in May, so we don't have to wait long for it at this stage. I am interested to see how they go for a sequel, because this as a formula, it feels like the kind of thing you can do once.
Mm.
And I'm interested to see what they do to kind of make the sequel different.
Yeah, especially because there was a lot of. I mean, we talked at the beginning about the introduction to the world is cool and all this other stuff, and that obviously is kind of gone. Obviously, with good sci-fi, I mean, you know, if your world is interesting enough, you can have 3 or 4 films where you discover something new every time, and you keep that sense of awe going for the viewer. But yeah, I mean, one of the minor criticisms of the film is, you know, it is kind of a standard get the MacGuffin film.
Yeah.
You know, and so I would hope that one way that they can keep the sequel fresh is, you know, maybe go in a new direction, maybe go a bit more character driven. You know, but again, it's tough. I mean, as we've talked about before, with a lot of these films, it's tough to go in any kind of radical plot direction when you're beholden to this overarching thing, especially this late in the game. When you're so close to the Infinity War, it's like, okay, we need to start getting stuff going here. We need to start getting these, you know, the ducks in a row, and specifically with the Guardians, because they are within throwing distance of Thanos himself, and they are more closely tied to the stones. You really feel that there is an impetus for these films to really begin setting up the conclusion. So yeah, you know, again, I'm not going to go into the sequel kind of expecting a grandiose character study. But yeah, you know, it's they're in a tough spot in that regard.
But if this film is any indication, they can do it, because totally different from Captain America, but this film is equally great.
Yeah, I watched it, you know, having just watched Captain America 2 there a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, man, I really do feel like Winter Soldier may be the best, but it's pretty damn close, maybe a tie. It's yeah, they are really fantastic and full of heart. I mean, Guardians is full of heart, which is great.
Indeed. And next up, we team up again. Next up is the Avengers. What's the name of that film? Age of Ultron. There you go.
Age of Ultron. I remember not really liking this one much on a first viewing. Kind of functionally fine as they all are, but I'll be interested to dive back into it. I liked Ultron as a villain. I thought he was interesting, so we'll jump back in, I guess. Yeah. So we're gearing up here. We're catching up to the current timeline, I think. So
we only have,
it's gonna be just
1, 2, 3, 4 more films to go. You know, when we started this, there were so many Marvel films. Now there's slightly less Marvel films.
Yeah, I guess. And then we have to start asking the question of what comes next.
Indeed. When there's 2 films during the summer, then another one in the winter, then another one next spring, then another 2 next summer, and it just keeps going.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Before we go, Barry, plugs.
Twitter.com/thebarryland is where you can find me talking about stuff. It's also where you can find me plugging stuff on the regular, you know, various different projects. Barry Murphy 236 on YouTube, playing through various things. Me and my pals playing through Resident Evil 7 at the moment, working on a Game of the Year video on my own. So yeah, that's 2016, by the way. So please God, let me get this finished before March.
Basically, if you get it out before Dave Meltzer gets the Observer Awards out, you've won.
You actually, you know what? You're right. I won't feel bad if I get that done. So that's good. So yeah, subscribe over there. Plus, you know, also I just do various bits and pieces over there, whatever takes my fancy. Various Hitman streams and things of that nature. So those are 2 big plugs. I'm over there all the time.